Hey guys, I want to share a story of a way that God has used me. And I have a little bit of trepidation sharing these videos within this list of God doing things through my life because I just want to be very clear and straightforward that the reason I'm sharing is to testify that God is alive, not to pat myself on the back and talk about how great I am. If I was so great, it would not be a testimony. It would just put pressure and judgment on everyone. And internally, I would be so insecure trying to uphold this perception of greatness. But the reality is, I am not so great, but God has used my life. And so, hopefully, in this story, you can see the Godness in it that is beyond just Jeremy being a good person. This might not be the most fun story to listen to because I'm going to do some reading from when I wrote about it. But it's a pretty awesome story. It happened May 21st, 2013. So just finished freshman year of college. And here's what happened. To give you some context, I am on my way home. I'm about to turn left on Westheimer off the Beltway feeder road. And there is a lady there asking for money. Normal spot for people to be asking for money. But I've driven this drive however many times in my life, and this is not someone I recognize. And she a couple things noticeably. One, pretty well kept, and two, very sad. It almost seemed like she was throwing up with shame. And from those two observations, I deduced that she's probably new here and probably did not expect to be in this position. I'm wondering, did she just get kicked out of her apartment where she was living with her boyfriend or husband, or how did she end up here? She doesn't look like she's been on the streets long, and she certainly seems humiliated to be asking for money. And so I want to give her some money because she just is so broken. I mean, and no one was giving her anything. This is Houston. There's not that, there's a decent homeless population, and unfortunately, it almost feels like not the most compassionate city ever towards the corner homeless people, particularly because there are several homeless ministries within the city of Houston that people will, essentially say that you should go there, and if you don't, then you don't necessarily get a lot of love. Anyways, I want to give her some money, but check this out. I'm writing this May 21st, later that day. I say, I wanted to give, but I literally had less than 50 cents in pocket change on me. I decided it'd be more insulting than helpful to give this to her, especially since my car was so newly purchased that I didn't have license plates. I was driving, I think I must have been driving one of my parents' vehicles, and it didn't even have license plates on it, so I'm assuming she thinks I'm well off. This is West Houston. It's a nicer area in Houston. And I'm thinking she's gonna just feel so insulted if I give her 50 cents or less than 50 cents. So I kept it. However, my conscience wouldn't stop nagging me. This must have been the longest red light ever. God convicted me by pointing out my own selfishness and pride. He pointed out to me, and this is me quoting what I feel like God spoke to me. So you would give to her if you had more, but because you have less, you won't? You care more about yourself being a difference than you do about my character. You should give solely because you love me, but you have a mindset that you give in order to help someone's physical needs. So let me just pause here and point to God. Okay, so Jeremy feels compassion for this girl, but Jeremy, I say girl, she's probably early 30s. Jeremy decided not to give to her because I had so little and I didn't want to hurt her feelings or insult her by giving that little. And so I thought it'd be better if I just didn't give. That's the end of the story if we're just talking about Jeremy. Okay, that's not a testimony at all. What happens is God convicts me, He rebukes me, like, you think this is all about you and what you can do to help someone, but that's not how I see generosity. Like, you should be willing to give whatever it is that you have to give. Just like, the widow gave her 2 mites to the temple, if you know that Bible reference. So, anyways, I'll keep going on my recollection here. It says, I realized that I was more interested in saving this lady's day myself rather than trusting God and giving Him control of my life and of hers. That said, I did give her my change. And what struck me is that she, accepted it so gracefully, so humbly, so willingly. It's like she had, tears in her eyes and was, nodding, accepting it. Because she could probably see the disappointment on my face. I think I said, I'm so sorry, this is all I have. I thought, to me, I'm like, there's no way she's going to believe that this is all I have. I've given to homeless people before, and in less extreme settings, and when you just toss a couple coins, it normally does not elicit this gratitude. It's more like, screw you. You could, just not a ton of thankfulness. She was so thankful for the however many cents that I gave her, and she believed me that that's all that I had, which is shocking and was shocking to me at the time. Again, this writing is from me as, a couple weeks out of freshman year of college. So this isn't Mr. Mature Jeremy processing all of this. But here's what happens next. So that moment strikes me. It says, as the light turns green, I made my left turn, and God asked me, you wanted to give more to that woman, right? I respond with a quick yes, reiterating that I was bummed that I didn't have more on me. Then I feel like God said, well, go to the bank, get more, and go back to her. Which, again, Jeremy would not have had that thought. Jeremy likes efficiency. Jeremy doesn't like interruptions, especially that take 30 minutes altogether. To go to the bank and then go back to the other side of the feeder, take a U-turn, come all the way back, sit at that light again. I would not have done this. But I said, with surprisingly little hesitation, I change over 5 lanes to make the immediate right turn for Bank of America. And then I'm wondering how much God wants me to give. And what I wrote here is, God took me from $20 to $50 to $100. So as I walk back to my parked car with $100 in my wallet, I'm starting to get really excited for the way that you were about to bless this woman. I had so many things I wanted to tell her about your love. I get back, I turn my hazard lights on to wait for the green light to go red. I park the car, I run out to her, and I tell her I went to the bank to get more. And I hand her the $100. My best guess, I don't know, my best guess is I had $1,500 to my name, but it could have been more it could have been as little as $500, and I would have been shocked. I don't think it was over $2,000. I mean, most of the money that I had saved up, I spent freshman year of college, and I hadn't started any other job yet. So $100 to give was a gut punch. It was a lot to me, and I give it to her, and she looks at me with the most awestruck look, and she says, "Are you serious?" And it felt like she thought it was too good to be true. It says, what I wrote is, this was a love she had never seen, known, or probably even heard of existing in real life. This was you, Jesus. And a smiley face. Anyway, she asked me that. I simply looked back at her with a smile. I was excited to bless her and didn't know what to say. Once she figured out that I was serious, her entire demeanor shifted. It was like every wall she put up or burden she was carrying disappeared. She looks at me again and asks, still at a loss for words, "Can I hug you?" I reply, "Absolutely." And she hugged me like I was her hero. It wasn't out of romance by any means, just pure desperation. It was a warm, close, firm hug with cheeks pressed against one another. I have never experienced a hug like that. I have never so drastically impacted someone in a moment's time like that before. It was like she went from hopeless to hope in an instant. It was so cool to see you touch her life in that moment. As my window is now open to tell her about you, I pretty much just cracked in every way. All I could say was, I don't know what happened, but it's going to be okay. In spite of my lack of boldness, you worked in her. Because I wanted to share the gospel with her. I wanted to lead her to Jesus. I wanted to, be the hero. But I actually failed the one thing that I had the idea to do. One thing that I assumed God probably wanted me to do is, man, I can tell her all these things and she can know you. God just initiated the gift and I gave that, and then the part that I initiated, I totally failed. And so I was bummed. I said, I feel like a failure for doing so little. But honestly, it didn't matter because you did so much. God, you are good. It's pretty cool. So that's just a story. I obviously never saw her again, and I don't know what happened in her. I don't think she became a regular on the streets, so hopefully that $100 was helpful to her practically. But man, the testimony is that God interrupted me because he saw someone in need, and I got to be just the messenger, the ambassador, the conduit for God to bless this woman. And even though I failed to even mention God, all I could say is, it's going to be okay. She pointed to the sky, and she was like crying, weeping, like bitter cry. Like she was not talking, other than the, can I hug you? And are you serious? Those are the only things that came out of her mouth in the, 3-minute interaction that we were out there. But internally, she knew that it was from God. I'm assuming, based on her pointing to the sky and, in a sense, viewing me as a God send, or in some way a reminder that God sees her and cares about her. And man, how cool, right? Like, if I could do that again 1,000 times, I would. Like, just amazing. There's not really a moral to this story. I just want to share a testimony of something God has done through my life. And in that moment, I just felt so alive. I felt like this is what we're made to do, to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to meet people with needs. Of course, there are 1,000 more strategic things to do with money. There's always reasons why not to give to something, but man, for God to insert that thought into my head, and then for me to just be like, okay, let's see what happens, with such eager anticipation, and then for it to actually be such a huge blessing. Man, what a rush of adrenaline, and what just like humble gratitude I have to even have gotten to be there for that moment. I feel fortunate that God let me be a witness to what he was doing. Not me witnessing to her, but I got to be what's it called? An eye hand witness? What is it called? That shows you how much news I watch. I don't know. First hand witness. First eye. Eyewitness. An eyewitness? Yeah, there you go. I got to be an eyewitness, or a first account, I don't know, of something God was doing, and man, so worth it. Hopefully that's encouraging to you guys. And yeah, if I'll share some more stories throughout this year. But man, I'll talk to y'all soon. Life is worship. God is love.